I am under no illusions about what an incredible humanitarian catastrophe this is, and the hardships that we're seeing. And the refugees that are traveling in very dangerous circumstances and now creating real political problems among our allies in Europe, and the heartbreaking images of children drowned trying to escape war. And the potential impact of such a destabilized country on our allies in the region. But what we have learned over the last 10, 12, 13 years is that unless we can get the parties on the ground, to agree to live together in some fashion, then no amount of US military engagement will solve the problem. And we will find ourselves either doing just a little bit and not making a difference, and losing credibility that way, or finding ourselves drawn in deeper and deeper into a situation that we can't sustain. And when I hear people offering up half-baked ideas as if they are solutions, or trying to downplay the challenges involved in this situation, what I'd like to see people ask is, specifically, precisely, what exactly would you do, and how would you fund it, and how would you sustain it? And typically, what you get is a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. So these are hard challenges. They are ones that we are going to continue to pursue. The top-line message that I want everybody to understand is we are going to continue to go after ISIL. We are going to continue to reach out to a moderate opposition. We reject Russia's theory that everybody opposed to Assad is a terrorist. We think that is self-defeating. It will get them into a quagmire. It will be used as a further recruitment tool for foreign fighters. We will work with the international community and our coalition to relieve the humanitarian pressure. On refugees, we are working with the Turks and others to see what we can do along the border to make things safer for people. But ultimately, we're going to have to find a way for a political transition if we're going to solve Syria. John Carl. Question, thank you, Mr. President. President Obama, yes. Question, back in July you said that the gun issue has been the most frustrating of your presidency. And we certainly heard that frustration from you last night. President Obama, yes. Question, so in the last 15 months of your presidency, do you intend to do anything differently to get Congress to act or to do something about this gun violence problem? And I have to get you to respond to something that Jeb Bush just said. And to be fair to Governor Bush, I want to read it directly. Asked about the drive to take action in light of what happened in Oregon, he said, "Look, stuff happens. There's always a crisis. And the impulse is always to do something, and it's not always the right thing to do. How would you react to Governor Bush? President Obama, I don't even think I have to react to that one. I think the American people should hear that and make their own judgments. Based on the fact that every couple of months, we have a mass shooting. And in terms of, and they can decide whether they consider that stuff happening. In terms of what I can do, I've asked my team as I have in the past to scrub what kinds of authorities do. We have to enforce the laws that we have in place more effectively to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. Are there additional actions that we can take that might prevent even a handful of these tragic deaths from taking place? But as I said last night, this will not change until the politics change and the behavior of elected officials changes. And so the main thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this on a regular basis. And I will politicize it because our inaction is a political decision that we are making. The reason that Congress does not support even the modest gun safety laws that we proposed. After Sandy Hook is not because the majority of the American people don't support it. I mean, normally, politicians are responsive to the views of the electorate. Here you've got the majority of the American people think it's the right thing to do. Background checks, other common sense steps that would maybe save some lives couldn't even get a full vote. And why is that? It's because of politics. It's because interest groups fund campaigns, feed people fear. And in fairness, it's not just in the Republican Party, although the Republican Party is just uniformly opposed to all gun safety laws. And unless we change that political dynamic, we're not going to be able to make a big dent in this problem. For example, you'll hear people talk about the problem is not guns, it's mental illness. Well, if you talk to people who study this problem, it is true that the majority of these mass shooters are angry young men. but there are hundreds of millions of angry young men around. The world tens of millions of angry young men. Most of them don't shoot. It doesn't help. Us just to identify, and the majority of people who have mental illnesses are not shooters. So we can't sort through and identify ahead of time who might take actions like this. The only thing we can do is make sure that they can't have an entire arsenal when something snaps in them. And if we're going to do something about that, the politics has to change. The politics has to change. And the people who are troubled by this have to be as intense and as organized and as adamant about this issue as folks on the other side who are. Absolutists and think that any gun safety measures are somehow an assault on freedom. Or communistic, or a plot by me to take over and stay in power forever or something. I mean, there are all kinds of crackpot conspiracy theories that float around there, some of which by the way, are ratified by elected officials in the other party on occasion. So we've got to change the politics of this. And that requires people to feel, not just feel deeply. Because I get a lot of letters after this happens, do something. Well, okay, here's what you need to do. You have to make sure that anybody who you are voting for is on the right side of this issue. And if they're not, even if they're great on other stuff, for a couple of election cycles you've got to vote against them. And let them know precisely why you're voting against them. And you just have to, for a while, be a single issue voter, because that's what is happening on the other side. And that's going to take some time. I mean, the NRA has had a good start. They've been at this a long time, they've perfected what they do. You've got to give them credit, they're very effective, because they don't represent the majority. Of the American people, but they know how to stir up fear, they know how to stir up their base. They know how to raise money, they know how to scare politicians, they know how to organize campaigns. And the American people are going to have to match them in. Their sense of urgency if we're actually going to stop this. Which isn't to say stopping all violence. We're not going to stop all violence. Violence exists around the world, sadly. Part of original sin. But our homicide rates are just a lot higher than other places that, by the way, have the same levels of violence. It's just you can't kill as many people when you don't have easy access to these kinds of weapons. And I'm deeply saddened about what happened yesterday. But Arn is going back to Chicago. Let's not forget, this is happening every single day in forgotten neighborhoods around the country. Every single day. Kids are just running for their lives, trying to get to school. Broderick, when we were down in New Orleans, sitting down with a group of young men. When we were talking about Katrina, and I've got two young men next to me, both of them had been shot multiple times. They were barely 20. So we got to make a decision. If we think that's normal, then we have to own it. I don't think it's normal. I think it's abnormal. I think we should change it. But I can't do it by myself. So the main thing I'm going to do, John, is talk about it. And hope that over time I'm changing enough minds along with other leaders around the country that we start finally seeing some action. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. Cheryl Bolan. Question, thank you, Mr. President. To go back to your opening remarks, you said that you won't sign another short-term CR. But as you know, yesterday Secretary Lew announced that the government's borrowing authority would run out around November 5th. Would you recommend negotiating an increase in the debt? Ceiling as part of these budget negotiations on spending caps? And also, does the Speaker's race complicate these negotiations? President Obama, I'm sure the Speaker's race complicates these negotiations. That was a rhetorical question. It will complicate the negotiations. But when it comes to the debt ceiling, we're not going back there. Maybe it's been a while, so let me just refresh everybody's memory. Raising the debt ceiling does not authorize us to spend more. It simply authorizes us to pay the bills that we have already incurred. It is the way for the United States to maintain its good. Credit rating: the full faith and credit of the United States.